Howdy everybody, it's Matt or InfoSec Addict here, and today I'm going to be talking about my interview process and how you can prepare to. Now, just a little bit of a background. I decided I wanted to move into InfoSec in 2024, and so my interest has just been to get to work in the SOC for threat hunting. Since then, I've been self-learning on my free time, volunteering, and attending conferences. At the moment, I'm currently learning and understanding how the operating system works, then learning network fundamentals, and I'll dabble into coding and scripting in upcoming months. Because I've had mentors that really test my knowledge, and I realize I actually don't know this stuff. So that's why I've been going back to getting back to basics, essentially. Now, additionally, since I went from having 0 interviews in 2024 to 4 interviews in 2025, to now moving on to 2026, I recently had 2 different companies, and most of these interviews have been internships and 1 or 2 jobs, and I've been getting most of the interviews from internal referrals at some while networking and mentors people who know people at these companies. There's a senior director that I knew in person, where he met me. We caught up what I was interested in, and his company is doing an internship coming summer. It's like he told me to send his resume, so that's how I got an interview. Not disclosing who, but he knows who he is. And with that, we'll discuss on how to get the interview. Now, first things first is do some self-learning. So you'll do learning through TryHackMe, Hack the Box, and various platforms. Those are just 2 to name, as well as your resume. Right. I've had a pretty resume in 2024, and I've leveraged my school, community college career services, and so I now have a pretty decent, strong foundation. And I have a base resume where if I were to make adjustments, I can tailor my resume to each job without changing its base. And so if you are currently in school, I will leverage your school's career services. And they might have a decent amount of connections to some of these companies as well as networking. Now, you can network typically by attending conferences, events, and volunteering. And so I would search up cyber or tech networking events near me, and find the people that are running those events and check if those events are legitimate, and then ask if you can attend or volunteer. I've also done a few presentations because of my leadership background and having founded an InfoSec club. So for some of these presentations, I was pretty comfortable, even though at one networking event, they said it was my first presentation. It was actually my first professional presentation, and people thought I was really comfortable. It's because I had experience presenting. So now, sort of the whys, right? Why do you need to learn on your free time? Do self-learning? Why do you need to have a resume? Why do you need to network? Networking part, I'll explain more why. Foundationally, now, you gotta understand, in order to network, you have to understand why you're even networking in the first place. And the reasons involved is cybersecurity as a field, in almost any field. I come from healthcare. Is centered around trust. Alright. If people do not know you, what you do, what your interests, and why, there is very little chance of getting an interview in the first place. Because your resume will not get looked at when it gets submitted. And because if you're applying to a bunch of jobs, but then you don't know people at these companies, or directors, managers of some of these companies, your resume is not going to get looked at. Right. They will your resume isn't going to even be looked at by a human. So, if you when you're networking with people, right, you know people at these companies, ask them for guidance and help. Hey, can you refer me to this job? Right? The chances of somebody looking at your resume by human, your resume being looked at by a human, is way, way higher. Now, the other thing is, I might not say this point. Something to understand is I didn't have an IT background. I come from a healthcare, so I had experience with patient care, and that naturally sort of translated over to my goal to work at security vendors, to help on the client side. And for the most part, I got really interested in InfoSec, and because I knew people at these companies, some were willing to take a chance on me and giving me an interview, because I've been doing networking, volunteering, and plenty more. And at the moment, I currently volunteer. I currently mentor a few people on my own free time as I go through my journey, and I currently moderate the Ginger Hacker Initiative's Discord community. Hence, I've been getting people send me resources. I still have a SiteStuff voucher that I need to use, and that they've been offering some of these resources to me for free, which is really cool. Now, with that, we'll dabble into the interview process. Now, depending on the job and role, this can typically start with a CTF, and it's a skills-based test. If you have applied for an internship or a job pertaining to application security, expect lead code type questions on your technicals. It's to really understand, one is to see how you do, and second is understanding your thought process. Now, if you haven't had to do a CTF, the interview process will typically start with a recruiter call in that case. And there are going to be questions involving why do you want to work at the company? And here's a really bad answer. If you give an answer that it's like, because you're a great company, I'll do great stuff, without giving any clear examples of people you follow that work there, usually isn't enough, and you will get filtered out. Right? Because the biggest reason is companies are looking for candidates that are willing to grow with the company, and if your answer is not leading in that type of direction, you will likely not move on to the next round. Right? And in addition, they'll ask about your goals and how your goals may align with the company's mission and values as well. So, point being, if you're not willing to grow, if you have goals that don't align with the company, it's not leading in that direction, you're probably you're probably not going to be moving on to the next round. Now, from there, technical interview. You will be tested on your technical knowledge depending on the role. Get some water real quick. So, if it is a SOC analyst internship or just a SOC analyst role, expect defensive security questions. I will not say which company tests with what knowledge, and the companies I've interviewed with so far. It's pretty unfair. I'm not here to give people an unfair advantage. Some will test you on your troubleshooting skills. Some will test on your network fundamentals. It really depends. I've had interviews that tested my troubleshooting skills before, and I thought I initially screwed up pretty badly. But apparently, after speaking to some of the folks at those companies, I probably didn't. Now, let's just say I gave you the questions companies test me on. The chances of failure is you'd probably fail. And the reason being is because, let's just say that somebody's asking you about how email now, and you said SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. Right? How do you analyze email? They're going to ask, do you know how, explain to me how SPF, DKIM, and DMARC work. And if you don't know it, yeah, they'll know. Because the interview process, the interviews, especially technical and both behavioral, it's designed for interviewers to understand your thought process and how well you think through situations with the knowledge you have. Right? They're there to test your knowledge. Right? They're there to test your problem solving. And if you just memorize answers without understanding the whys, yeah, you're kind of screwed. So, but if you've done any sort of self-learning and write-ups, and having mentors that teach you, you'll be pretty way ahead in terms of answering them, because you've gotten exposure to knowledge, and you're constantly asking questions to other from people that work in the field and teaching that knowledge. You're just doing the same in an interview. So, point being, yeah, you are explaining it while the concept while in the interview, your knowledge as well. So, yeah, you're just teaching somebody that you know and understand the concepts they're asking about. Now, finally, behavioral. Right, and this is where even I've messed up pretty badly, and most will too, because get some water. Because one, I'm not used to talking about myself. Right? Not everyone is used to talking about themselves. In addition, it's because I also didn't have clear, strong examples that support my answers. Alright. But in the behavioral interview, you are talking about yourself and teaching the interviewers about you. How you problem solve and how you learn. Well, how you problem solve through difficult situations and how you learn. Alright. So in this case, we're talking about soft skills. With me, in any sort of interview questions that the people in the interview are asking me, I use a little bit of cheat code. I mean I verbalize my thought process out loud. Because one, I jot down my thought process and materialize my thoughts with clarity, so I have a lot more clarity. Which helps me put my thought process together into answering the question they ask me a lot more effectively. And there's actually a added bonus. Interviewers can hear my thought process out loud, and when they hear it, they see where I'm going. They see where I'm going with the answers, and so they have an understanding. So, because the point is for interviewers to understand where you're going about your answers and the whys too. So now, because of my work experience in healthcare, leadership, and contributions to projects, just recently a pretty big conference like Telecom, helping build out the Career Village, I'm able to provide examples, and such as how I leverage my leadership skills to bring some of these projects, and how I leverage my communication skills as well, and just helping bring a conference to life. So, and in addition, they'll also, something to understand too is, they'll also ask, how do you, you're entering, well, what's it called? They'll ask how you interact with people. Questions on how do you interact with people too. So having clear experiences and examples will help answer a lot of those questions. Now that we talked about the interview process, right? So recruiter, technical interview, and behavioral questions. How do you prepare? Biggest one, mock interviews. The general rule of thumb is once every 2 weeks is a pretty good pace to do mock interviews. If you have mentors who have interviews nailed down to a science, they can provide you lots of valuable feedback on what not to do, to help you give you clarity on how you should answer these questions. And from there, you'll be chilling. All right. the same principle around presenting events at events and conferences. Once you do a few of these mock interviews, you'll get pretty comfortable and get used to it. In addition, recommendation is gain experience through volunteering, CTFs, and networking with people, all while doing your own self-learning. Right. Because at these events, you learn how to talk and interact with people, which is important, especially today. I remember having gone to a tech panel that was hosted at my old community college. Yeah, soft skills is another 50% of it, and point being, if these interviewers see that you're probably going to inflict psychological damage to their team, you're going to minimize their productivity, and they will probably not hire you or move you forward. But a chance to get a job at the company. Now, with that, there are a couple things you do need to understand. Alright, you are competing with over 20,000 applicants per job in internship, just for one job. I've spoken to a lot of my friends that work at these companies, so I have somewhat of a decent understanding of what these numbers are looking like. And also do understand, even after you network, you're able to get internal referrals, that hiring managers have a final say whether they want to interview you, so that's something to understand. But for the most part, because you have an internal referral, your resume gets sent through an internal referral. So something around. No, hold on. Let me rephrase that real quick. If you get an internal referral, right, it'll put your resume further ahead in line to be looked at by a human. And kind of a pointer that I will say is, for these resumes at least, have somebody who knows you personally and understands you look at your resume, because they know you. Right? There's a lot more clarity in the advice that they're giving. I wouldn't recommend having somebody on LinkedIn and various platforms do it, but someone that knows you personally is going to give you more clarity in the advice and how you need to adjust your resume and formatting. I've also used a variety of resume templates that I've used before. One that I currently use now, and then I just adjusted to my needs, and then I have my mentors and career services in the past looked at it. So, and additionally, interview process is pretty brutal, but it's pretty humbling, due to the time at each stage and the panel of people that you are interviewing with, because everyone has different personalities. All right. Some probably predetermined that they probably don't like you, and they probably won't move you on to the next round because there's a bit of a bias going on. So, but that's also why, understand that you can't you can't make everyone like you. But, one bad interview doesn't sound the rest, right? You just have to keep on going till one company decides that they want to take a chance on you. Mentors and the friends that you made, right? And again, they know you personally, can give you really great feedback. But be honest with the interview experience that you've had with your mentors and friends, right? Be as brutally honest and direct as possible, because you'll be able to get effective advice that will help you with the next interview. And something to understand too, interviews help prepare for upcoming ones. So, don't be surprised if you do well in the next one. And with that, that's it. I hope by sharing my experiences and pointers, it helps you prepare for your upcoming interviews and being successful. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a message. I'm more than happy to answer. And as far as what's next for me at the moment, sharpening on basics. That's important. And then we'll see what to do from there. But with that, take care and have a great day.